So if there's no questions before we get started here, our first presentation is going to be from Hannah Schmillen of Ohio University Libraries, and she's going to be speaking on systematic reviews.
Hi, my name is Hannah Schmell and I am the Acting Department Head for Subject Liaisons and the Health Sciences Librarian at Ohio University. I work specifically with the College of Health Sciences and Professions, which includes everything from nursing to athletic training to communication sciences and disorders. When it comes to systematic review experience, I have over 50 hours of training and I'm still learning. I have published several as co-author, 2 currently being worked on, and have acted as a consultant to more than I can count. Am I an expert? No. There are many LIS professionals who have more experience than I in systematic reviews, but I enjoy teaching and supporting systematic reviews. In addition, if we aim to support the research needs on our campuses, institutions, and labs, then systematic reviews have to be a consideration as they are permeating into disciplines other than health and medicine, including engineering, business, social sciences, I have only 20 minutes today, so the plan is to give you an overview of systematic reviews, then talk about librarian and LIS involvement in this type of methodology, and finally, revisiting how other disciplines, including other STEM fields, are utilizing systematic reviews and similar methodologies through one of my research projects. This video, a reference list with resources, including my systematic review prenup and guide, and discussion points are all available in the link noted. So what are systematic reviews? This type of methodology seeks to systematically search for, appraise, and synthesize research evidence, often adhering to guidelines to conduct the review in order to answer a specific question. The systematic search is an important, if not the most important component of the search of this kind of methodology. This is how you gather your data, and in order to minimize bias, the search needs to be systematic, inclusive, and reproducible. The study appraisal is also important to ensure that the studies included in the final synthesis are of quality. However, if you are performing a scoping review, which is a cousin to the systematic review that seeks to answer a broader question, then study appraisal is not needed because you are looking for trends, gaps, etc. in the literature related to the topic. The other important concept I have mentioned is guidelines, protocols, and standards. Basically, there are governing bodies that help regulate and provide guidance to conducting systematic reviews. Traditionally, a systematic review was used in medicine and gathered randomized controlled trials to answer a specific clinical question. They have evolved to include a variety of studies, combined and synthesized that are appropriate to your question. For example, if your question is qualitative in nature, gathering randomized control trials is not appropriate. Rather, case studies would be better. Often, systematic review and meta-analysis are used interchangeably or even together. Systematic review can either be qualitative and or quantitative, but always has a systematic approach. What I mean by that is not cherry-picking studies, but including all possibilities, blind selection, and as unbiased of an approach as possible to gathering and selecting studies, meaning searching multiple databases, having a solid search strategy, etc. Meta-analysis is quantitative and does not have to be done systematically. I could combine 3 of my own data sets from separate studies and do an analysis. That would be a very legitimate meta-analysis, but the studies were not selected blindly, inclusively, and biasedly, etc., because that wasn't the point of the study or appropriate, but therefore it's not systematic. Some common misconceptions of systematic reviews is definitely the time. You cannot bust out a systematic review in a month or 2. The only way to do that would be a very large team with no other obligations of work, and you may be able to do it properly in 3 months, but I doubt it. Which leads me to the number of people in your team. 3 or more are necessary for the ability to have multiple researchers make decisions on if a study is included or not, blinding, and overall expertise. In addition, they are a lot of work, so you will want a support system. Often people think they want to do a systematic review because it is a buzzword at this point. But that doesn't mean it's always appropriate to your question. I did not plan on going into much of the detail about different types of reviews, so I'll point you to a chart and additional resources at the end of my presentation. The next misconception is the amount of records to sift through. It could very easily be several thousand or more. There's no hard number because, again, it will depend upon your question, but you should absolutely be searching at least 3 databases. There are standards to adhere by, and we'll discuss a couple of them later, but this is often missed or people don't know where to look to get these. And finally, librarians seriously have an incredible impact on this type of methodology, which will also be discussed later. But to us, it may seem obvious. Who better to gather your data when the data is literature than a librarian? This is literally a huge part of our job. I do want to go through a typical workflow before we talk about some of the standards to give you better context. This workflow is from Cochrane Library of Systematic Reviews, which is one of the main authorities in systematic reviews. This gives you a picture of a standard systematic review workflow. We have preparation, which is the preliminary search, building a team, defining your question, making a protocol for your study, and so on. Then retrieval of studies. This is for 2 stages. We have the title and abstract, and then after appraisal, the full text gathering. So then you have appraisal, which is when you decide what studies are to be included based on your criteria and the quality of the studies. Synthesis, which is your data analysis, and write-up of the manuscript, respectively. Overall, you're looking at about 400 hours of dedicated work for multiple people. I do note on this slide that depending on the type of review, this will vary, meaning the time, etc. So for a scoping review, there is more retrieval and more appraisal, but less synthesis. It may also depend upon the literature pool itself. If your topic is quite novel, there may not be many studies, so there's going to be less hours of work. On this screen, you can see some of the main authorities for standards, guidelines, and protocols. The difference? The standards/guidelines are how to properly conduct a systematic review, so the rules. Protocols are roadmaps to your study that help keep the team on track and are published for transparency. Prospero is often used for health and medicine if you're not conducting a Cochrane review or Joanna Briggs review, as those tend to be more regulated and of higher expectations. The Campbell Institute is both a registry of protocols as well as authority for social science reviews. The Campbell, if your review is not in the social sciences or health and medicine, not listed on this slide is the Open Science Framework, because they are also an acceptable place for systematic review protocols that don't fit in these boxes. And I actually have a scoping review protocol registered in the Open Science Framework, and I'll provide that link at the end of the presentation. PRISMA is very important and provides standards and guidelines of what to include in your manuscript for write-up, and GRADE is a quality analysis checklist. More information and links to all of these will be noted later, I promise. Alright, let's move into the importance of us. This flowchart is the same as you've seen, but the scope is where do we fit. And the answer is from the beginning to the end, but we do have some highlights along the way. In the preparation phase, we help ensure organization of the team. I often refer to myself as a project manager, and do preliminary literature searches to ensure that no one else is doing the topic. So looking at those protocol registries, and that there is enough literature to actually do a systematic review on this topic. The next is throughout the retrieval phase, which includes building the search strategy, searching, gathering all of the records, and doing so again for those selected for full text. And finally, the write-up, mostly the methodology section, which includes search strategies, where you've searched, when, how many records, how you manage these records, etc. Librarians and LAS professionals are specifically mentioned in Cochrane's Handbook for Systematic Reviews, which is the quote on the left. And on the right are two articles from 2005 that demonstrate the need and value of us in systematic review methodology. So it's not really new that librarians are involved in this type of methodology, but rather becoming more common as systematic reviews become more valued throughout disciplines. Further, systematic review production has dramatically increased over the past decade and a half, and will only continue to do so. We are looking at an increase for both systematic reviews and meta-analysis in PubMed alone is over 2,500% from the years 1991 to 2014. So you can only imagine what that number is now. However, that doesn't mean all of these reviews are good. And in my experience, and many studies back me up, including this one, that the reviews are not done well at all. And because we, the academic community, value systematic reviews so highly, this is a problem. We can help, we cannot solve the entire issue, but we can certainly help. Here are two of the many studies done that demonstrate a direct relationship between librarians as co-authors or intimately involved with systematic reviews and better quality of the study. Another option for aiding with this problem, other than being involved in such a project, is being a reviewer for journals that often publish systematic reviews. I am one for the Annals of Family Medicine and only for systematic reviews. Peer review your fellow librarian search strategies is another option. Why? If you're not a health sciences librarian, which is clearly most of these systematic reviews live, because systematic reviews are not strictly found and valued in these disciplines, meaning health and medicine, any longer. I am currently involved in a scoping review with 3 other librarians that is exploring the involvement of librarians in systematic reviews in a variety of disciplines, which include health and medicine, education, engineering, business, and psychology. Each of us on the research team have been or are currently a subject liaison for the disciplines mentioned above. We started by looking at all of the disciplines in one study through searching 22 databases. But it was too much. Over 62,000 records too much. So now we are focusing on education and we'll start working through the rest of the disciplines one by one. But based on those initial searches, the majority of those records were in health and medicine, as expected, but business was closer than we originally anticipated. These numbers were noted before we did deduplication of the records. And of course, not all 12,246 of those business-related records are indeed systematic reviews or similar studies. Some of them are just citing systematic reviews, therefore came up. But it does give you an idea of systematic review presence in these disciplines. We, librarians and LAS professionals, bring a unique expertise to this methodology, and I would encourage you to explore this opportunity. Not all of us will be able to be as involved as we would like because, let's be real, we all have many hats as it is. For me, being involved in systematic reviews with faculty and researchers in my liaison role has really increased my relationships, credibility, and information literacy agenda. Plus, I am establishing my presence through publications and doing my bit to advocate our skill set. Lastly, my searching skills has greatly improved since being involved in systematic reviews. This is the end of my spiel. I just wanted to point out the reference list, which includes my systematic review prenup, or packet as advertised to my faculty, and link to it in my LibGuide as well as other resources. Since I did not mention my prenup packet, I will review it quickly now. This link will take you to my guide, where you will find links to all of the protocols and standards, tools, etc., as well as a tutorial too. This one here on the front page is my packet, which is what I give to faculty and researchers who are thinking about doing a systematic review. This is my way of guiding them and ensuring that they do indeed know what a systematic review entails. There's also a page that is a bit like a contract that walks through possibilities for my level of engagement and those expectations. Next are prompting questions that are actually part of a protocol, but really focuses them in on their research question and experience. Finally is that chart I mentioned with the different review types. That chart can also be found on my guide as well if you'd prefer that format. I'm happy to answer any questions from email. And if you are interested in systematic reviews, there are 2 listservs I would suggest. That is the Expert Searching, which is through the Medical Library Association, as well as ACRL's new Systematic Review Interest Group listserv. Both are free to join.
Okay, so that was our first presentation. If you registered for this conference, and I think everyone I'm seeing here did, you will get an email with a link to the recording for the entire session, as well as the links to the documents that Hannah mentioned. You'll get the rest of those supporting documents as well as the video of the actual presentation. So you'll be able to review all of this stuff at your leisure. Next, we're having a presentation from Daniela Solomon of Case Western, and this is going to be some work that she did on standards education, teaching students how to use technical standards.
Hello everybody, and thank you for allowing me to share from my experience with standards education. As I am currently out of the country, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you through this pre-recorded presentation. My name is Daniela Solomon, and I am a Research Services Librarian at Case Western Reserve University. In this capacity, I serve as the liaison for 5 out of the 7 engineering departments on campus, manage collections in those 5 fields, provide library instruction sessions and research consultations, and organize many outreach activities targeting engineering students and faculty. Due to my electrical engineering background, I came to appreciate the critical role standards play in industry, society, and global market. I brought this appreciation into my engineering librarianship career and made a goal to increase standards awareness on campus. This talk represents my belief that engineering librarians can play an active role in standards education on campus. I will begin my presentation with a short discussion about standards in general and why standards education is needed. I'll continue with the various standards education approaches and their specific issues. Next, I'll talk about Case Western Reserve University and the diverse routes I took to get involved with standards education on our campus, as well as the impact of my action. Finally, I will conclude with a list of takeaways that will hopefully resonate with the librarians already involved with standards education or encourage others to start getting involved. A short definition of standards is industry norms and specifications that provide guidance on how materials and services are to be designed and manufactured. In the United States, standards are developed by standards developing organizations, or SDOs, following a standardized process established by the American National Standards Institute. Although in the United States standards compliance is voluntary in most cases, global market, safety, and sustainability requirements deemed standards adoption necessary for the success of a product. The increasing need for standards compliance has determined employers' preference for graduates with standards knowledge. SDOs also prefer recruiting knowledgeable professionals that can participate in the standards development process. However, despite globalization and the multitude of other factors enhancing the significance of standards, standards education remains poor overall. As a result, the American National Standards Institute, in collaboration with other standards organizations, has developed the United States Standard Strategy Framework that states that simply familiarity with standards is not enough and that there is a strong need for firm education on the fundamentals of standards and their implementation. Corroborating with the framework and responding to industry needs, ABET, the accrediting organization for engineering programs, also revised its evaluation criteria to include standards requirements. Standards education is done at different levels: industry, SDO, and academia. In industry, learning about standards while on the job is the most comprehensive, effective way to do it, and each company is educating its employees through access to local expertise or opportunities for professional development. Many SDOs are active in educational initiatives, offering online materials and/or continuing education certificate. Some SDOs may collaborate with academia to encourage standards adoption in the classrooms by providing discounted standards, collaborating with faculty to develop instructional materials, or by sending representatives to campuses for specialized sessions or events. Many SDOs also collaborate with faculty on the research that is fundamental for standards development, or they offer scholarships or awards to students using standards. The best way to reach a large number of students and introduce them to standards is during their college years. Studies have demonstrated that in academic environments, the best approach to teaching standards is by integration into the class syllabus. It was also shown that in schools, it is sufficient that students develop a basic understanding of what standards are and why they are so important, the principles of standards development process, and how standards are used, since they can further develop their expertise while on the job. Standards education in academia could take various forms, from developing standardization courses to organizing standards-related events such as SDOs visits, collaborations on class material development, etc. Many libraries also contribute by way of instruction session and by providing access to standards. However, each approach comes with its own specific set of issues. Learning about standards while on the job is limited to company products and employees, and it could quickly become an inefficient way for the company to use local resources in terms of funds and time, especially if local expertise is not available. The SDO's programs are also limited in scope due to each SDO's focus on a specific field and the limited audience consisting of affiliated practicing professionals. Many of the training programs offered by SDOs require fees, and with hundreds of SDOs available, it can quickly become difficult to keep track of what educational or professional development opportunities each have. Academia has its own set of challenges with standards education. Developing new courses or implementing curricular changes is costly due to faculty members' limited time availability and the curricular requirements. Many faculty members have little or no standards experience, and this represents an impediment in integrating standards into class syllabus. Easily accessible standards training materials that could be adopted by these faculty members are limited and hard to discover. And while library instruction sessions could contribute to campus efforts for standards education, as we all know very well, these sessions are not as impactful if the faculty members are not as involved with the topic at hand. Standards education at Case Western Reserve University is not much different from other academic institutions. As an institution, Case Western Reserve University is defined by its intense research culture, which means that funding and publication numbers are the main motivations for faculty members. CWRU is also focused on entrepreneurship, but the support services pay more attention to intellectual property issues than standards issues. We have few engineering faculty members that have standards or industry experience, and therefore no sustained effort is made to teach standards beyond several specific classes. Moreover, many of the engineering graduates choose to go to graduate school instead of getting a job, and therefore our programs are less focused on preparing students for job expectations. The new ABET requirements, however, determined an increase in interest in standards education on our campus. All senior and capstone project classes expect students to apply standards to their projects. However, to be able to apply standards to a project, students need to become familiar with standards earlier on. This observation led to increased interest in introducing students to standards before they get into their senior project class. The level of standards used in classrooms depends on the engineering discipline and the experience faculty members have with standards, but overall, standards education on our campus is not at the level it needs to be. Kelvin Smith Library provides support for standards education in various ways, and it all started with assigning standards as part of my job responsibilities as soon as I was hired at KSL. With that in mind, by developing successful relationships with engineering faculty members, I was able to identify and tune in to their needs for expanded access to standards and discover opportunities for contributing to standards education. Thus, besides the already available IEEE standards, we were fortunate to be able to add online access to ASTM standards and establish and sustain on-demand standard service, first using IHS and then moving to TechStreet. Additionally, I have initiated and created multiple opportunities to support standards education alone or in collaboration. First, I added a standards tab on all the engineering-related LibGuides that I use whenever I present to any engineering class. Then, I created a dedicated LibGuide for standards that includes information about various types of standards and ways to access them, either through KSL or any other means. The LibGuide also includes a list of curated standards education resources that I put together to create a place where instructors could easily discover ideas, tools, and instructional materials to adopt for their classes. Later, I also added the materials from a standard workshop I organized back in 2015. Then, I created a dedicated LibGuide for standards that includes information about various types of standards and ways to access them, either through KSL or any other means. The LibGuide also includes a list of curated standards education resources that I put together to create a place where instructors could easily discover ideas, tools, and instructional materials to adopt for their classes. Later, I also added the materials from a standard workshop I organized back in 2015. The idea of the workshop came from discussions with two graduate students, both recently awarded ASTM awards for using standards for their research. My initial idea was for a small session where they could talk about their experience in working with standards. Due to their enthusiasm and support, That small idea transformed into a workshop with 2 sessions, one reserved for the 6 SDOs that eagerly accepted to participate, and one session reserved for local faculty to share from their experience in working with standards. The workshop created such a strong interest on our campus that we were able to secure collaborations with multiple offices on campus, and faculty were enthusiastic not only about sharing about their experience but also encouraging or even requiring students to participate. As a result, we had a record number of over 200 participants from all over the campus and not just from the School of Engineering. The sessions were recorded and posted on our YouTube channel to make them available post-workshop. All the participating SDOs were enthusiastic about the opportunity to meet with our campus community and wrote laudatory articles about our initiative for their constituencies. And most importantly, the workshop helped in establishing myself as a standards expert on campus. As a result, the Engineering Associate Dean asked me to create a standards tutorial to be included in the syllabi of some engineering courses and inquired whether it is possible to have more of these videos. While in the end my tutorial was not implemented due to the whole engineering curriculum overhaul, I am planning another similar workshop for this fall. As I already mentioned, I talk about standards each time I present to an engineering class. Although library sessions for engineering classes are not as common as in other disciplines, I make a point in introducing students to the large variety of information sources specific to engineering, including standards and patents. The image on the screen is from a Jeopardy-type game I use for senior classes to review the basic information literacy skills they should have when graduating. By continuously bringing up standards in my sessions and through discussions with faculty members, I have created opportunities to teach about standards as one-shot sessions. I started with a 15-minute session related to a homework assignment in a design class and ended up teaching 3 full class time sessions during the last school year. While the increase in number is not spectacular, I do consider it very good progress. As a variation of my instruction session, I have facilitated scheduling a standard session taught by a vendor representative who was able to provide students in the class with a different perspective on standards. One of those 3 dedicated standard sessions was more than a regular library session because it was developed as a course module in collaboration with the teaching faculty. Through her research network, the faculty secured a grant for introducing standards into her special topic courses. However, as she is one of those faculty with little standards experience and very little time, she reached out to me for help. The result of our collaboration is a course module that includes pre- and post-test quizzes, an interactive class presentation with built-in formative assessment methodology and a relevant case study, and a homework assignment. By incorporating this module into the syllabi of her 2 courses over the last school year, we were able to collect feedback, revise, and further improve the module. Our future plans include making the module available under the Creative Commons license, create a database of case studies relevant for a variety of engineering topics, and continue improving it by gaining support from other faculty to use it in their classes. Not only did we collaborate on developing this module, but we also collaborated on sharing our experiences with others that may be interested in teaching about standards. The result is a paper accepted at the 2019 American Society for Engineering Education Conference. So, what was the impact of my actions? First, a large number of engineering students have a chance to hear about standards through different library sessions. We have increased access to standards, and through negotiations we were able to ensure access to standards that are vital to specific civil engineering classes and thus have reduced the textbook cost for students in this department. With a relatively flat standards budget, we observed an increase in standards usage. For example, ACI 318 standard usage increased from 9 uses in the first year to 39 in the second year. ACE 7 standard usage increased from 62 uses in the first year to 97 in the second year, and ASTM standards usage doubled from 1,321 in the first year to 2,627 in the second year. The on-demand standard service also helped with the development of several new programs on campus by making standards available for setting up laboratories and research. My work also led to increased campus-wide recognition for KSL and myself as providers of access to standards and standards expertise. It also led to improving and initiating collaborations with SDOs, and in return, it increased Case Western Reserve University's visibility. The main takeaways from my presentation is that engineering librarians are well positioned to teach about standards. Librarians' involvement with standards education could benefit faculty members and students on multiple levels, including bringing everybody back to the library, as standards are never going to be available on Google. Standards expertise is also beneficial to librarians by creating or improving liaison relationships with engineering departments. Standards expertise also represents the professional niche that makes us unique and more valuable to our libraries. The last thought about perseverance being mandatory is not new to librarians, but I thought that by reiterating it, it will encourage anyone who considers getting involved with standards education or is already active in this field that success is possible, even though it may be in small steps. Thank you very much for your attention. As I am not able to take your questions at this time, please consider contacting me at the email address on the screen. I would be more than happy to answer to you.
Okay, so that was Daniela. And once again, you'll get that contact information if you want to follow up with her with any of your questions. And we're going to move right along to Allison. Allison, are you ready?
Sure.
I will pass the baton over to you. Let me know if you have any problems.
Okay. So my presentation is so much smaller in focus than what we heard from Hannah and Daniela. I was really blown away by how many people they're affecting with what they're doing with systematic reviews and teaching about standards. This was something I did just because I wanted to have fun with it. I hosted my very first short Wikipedia editathon as a way to celebrate Citizen Science Day, which happened to coincide with ACRL this year. So I'm sure all of you know that citizen science projects usually focus on the actual methodology of a science investigation, the doing of science rather than reporting science. I felt that communicating science and documenting scientific research is integral to the scientific method, and that can benefit from citizen engagement. So, and we all agree, I'm sure, that scientific method includes sharing your results, and that scientific information needs to be documented and relies upon accurate science communication. This is shown really well in this flow chart that I found at the University of California Museum of Paleontology website. And if you're on the website, each one of the circles, as you mouse over it, kind of explodes and shows you all the different steps that are part of the flowchart. And I think that the flowchart ought to specifically say that Wikipedia has become a very important source for summarizing and presenting scientific information for the public, as people are simply Googling for information of all kinds, and that inaccurate information on Wikipedia can have real negative consequences, and that's when library and information professionals can be a very important part of checking information on Wikipedia. So a case in point was brought home for me in my work with Citizens Climate Lobby when I learned that an acquaintance was relying on information from the NIPCC, thinking it was a balanced, unbiased source analogous to the IPCC. So here, the Wikipedia entry provides multiple references to reputable sources, and it describes immediately at the very beginning that the NIPCC is a climate change denial advocacy organization funded in part by the Heartland Institute, and there are dozens of links to good articles within and external to Wikipedia. So I think that clarifying the distinction between the NIPCC and the IPCC is a valuable service that a citizen scientist could provide. But let's talk about what citizen science is really. The SciStarter simply says it's science that we can do together. SciStarter and the Citizen Science Association work together to bring about the Citizen Science Day. There are, though, and probably some of you have been involved or maybe even sponsored citizen science projects. There are over 1,000 projects listed at thecitizenscience.org, and they cover just an amazing amount of different kinds of information. So it's a good source for understanding what citizen science is, and SciStarter itself is a wonderful website for librarians. Citizen Science Association even publishes its own journal in cooperation with Ubiquity Press on the theory and the practice of citizen science. So you can take a really deep dive into understanding what citizen science encompasses. This is a special issue on ethical issues in citizen science. I was browsing through this past week. There are many reflective, insightful articles on public perceptions of citizen scientists, scientist perceptions of citizen science, ways that you can motivate and retain good volunteers, and the projects are ranging from numerous different sorts of projects in the health sciences to monitoring birds and fish populations to watching for and documenting astronomical phenomena. The breadth of citizen science work is truly remarkable, and there are many ways that academic libraries can be involved. So if you want to get a really great guide on how you can support citizen science, SciStarter has this wonderful guide that you can download from their website. Scroll down a little bit on the right side until you can find this section that says resources, and then you can download this wonderful PDF. Citizen Science Day was actually April 13, but I scheduled my event for April 14, the day after ACRL. I'm going to talk about one project in particular that I know about, North Carolina State University's Wolfpack Citizen Science Challenge. Danica Lewis, who's the Collections and Research Librarian for Life Sciences at NCSU in Raleigh, described their ongoing citizen science projects at the American Association for the Advancement of Science annual meeting a few years ago, and that's where I first heard about it. And I mentioned it in the very small essay that I was asked to write in American Libraries, which had a broader theme of how academic libraries get public interested and excited about science. And I wanted to include this here because it shows the Big Science Cafe that the Ohio State University, in collaboration with Sigma Xi and the Worthington Public Libraries, does every year. And I'm pretty sure that Case Western Reserve University also has supported citizen science projects out of their library. So if you haven't found that article yet, it's what other libraries are doing to work with the general public is a lot of fun to read about. It's in that November issue, and it's available online. So, but back to Wikipedia editing. I actually have more to tell you about the Wolfpack Citizen Science Challenge. This spring, their challenge was they do something different. The theme is different every year, and this spring was pretty interesting. Students were asked to participate by finding and photographing insects and other life that they encounter in their home, dorm, or apartment. Other life meaning non-human, presumably. their photographs were uploaded to iNaturalist, and there were prizes for participating. So this was the very first scientific study to comprehensively examine the biodiversity of indoor spaces on a college campus. So it sounds like a lot of fun. I don't know how it turned out, but it's something that I bet Danica would be very happy to tell everybody. Now on to Wikipedia editing and how that relates to citizen science. We at Oberlin became excited about participating in the One Lib, One Ref campaign that was first started in January 2016. And the essential idea is that if every librarian could find one article that needed one good citation, it would improve Wikipedia dramatically, the emphasis being on finding good scholarly sources. So that's the One Lib, One Ref hashtag. And it was a fun challenge. We did it as a group, and we've done it 2 years in a row now, where we could cheer on each other's progress and have nice snacks in the middle of the workday. And we limited that to just a small group of reference librarians. But more recently, we were more ambitious and took part in the Art plus Feminism Wikipedia Editathon. This is something that's been going on a little longer. They started in 2014, and Art plus Feminism has now hosted more than 500 editathons and gatherings globally to create and improve thousands of Wikipedia pages. Our gathering was in the Art Museum on campus, where we were working nearly elbow to elbow, and we enjoyed the camaraderie and the snacks. Food and beverages are listed in the Librarian's Guide for editathons as being essential. One of the reference librarians even provided her very awesome Spotify playlist, which I could not do in the library. My library being an incredibly quiet place. Even if it's full of people, they're all very, very, very quiet. But the music definitely created kind of a happy tone, even as we were all sitting hunched over laptops, engrossed in what we were reading. There were 7 librarians in the room, and we were spread around the different tables so that we could provide instruction one-on-one. And there was, the students came and went, and they provided peer-to-peer advice. It was really nice to see. And the thing that kind of kept everybody motivated was that there was in the background of, on the far right, you'll see a projection screen where we were projecting the dashboard, and we could tell how much editing we had done, how many words we had added, how many articles had been edited. So someone would look at that every now and then, and there'd be a cheer in the room. So thinking about running an editathon by myself without my friendly librarian colleagues across the street was a little daunting, even though it was going to be kind of a small thing. Wikipedia has great advice. All you have to do is Google how to run an editathon, and you'll get to this great page. There is a link down toward the bottom there to get you to the program and events dashboard, which is on the Wikimedia site. And I have found that the Wikipedians are remarkably friendly, and it's a respectful online community. So not that I have been that involved in editing a lot in Wikipedia, but it's fun, and I haven't run into any of the kind of clash or political divides that you might expect if you're editing pages that have some kind of controversial nature to them. So in addition to this kind of formal editathon where you're using the program and events dashboard, you could choose to do a meetup, which has a slightly more informal flavor. I participated in the Women in Natural History Wikipedia editing workshop, and I did that remotely, which was linked or live streamed from YouTube. And it was a lot of fun. I could see, the people who were in the room, and again, watch how much editing was done in the moment. It was, I think I made one edit to one article about one woman, but it was a very modest contribution on an individual basis. But when you think of all the people who were participating, it does make a good a good impact. So Wikimedia, Wiki Education, Wikipedia student program provides great support also. If you're thinking about working with a faculty member, or maybe you already are and faculty have incorporated editing Wikipedia lessons into their courses, it has become an established pedagogical tool. And I spoke with staff from Wiki Education at both the AAAS meeting and the ACRL conference, and they gave good advice and encouragement. Getting Oberlin faculty interested in the effectiveness for learning through Wikipedia editing was kind of a challenge, and getting faculty support is really the best way to get students to consider this as something valuable. Before this year's Art Plus Feminism campaign, we created a LibGuide for Wikipedia editing and added a tab for each new library-sponsored event. Having the LibGuide and being able to point people to it before the event is a really good idea, so that students know how to create an account and where the dashboard is. It's also ideal for getting people as they come into the room, because people will just drop in, and then you can ask them to take a look at the projection screen and follow those directions, and then you can come back around and see how they're doing. So the Citizen Science tab on that LibGuide includes links to open access journal sites and information on how to find the citation needed statement, which are pretty obvious when you read through many Wikipedia articles. There's something like 30,000 statements in Wikipedia at any given time that need a good citation. So as I mentioned, getting students and faculty interested was the biggest challenge, even though I felt like I took so much time to get advertising out in as many venues as possible, created posts for Tumblr and for Twitter, the college and the community events calendars. I put print posters up on campus and downtown. I pushed things out on librarian group lists and to my faculty a couple of times, individually pleaded with faculty. It just seemed like a lot of effort for such a modest endeavor, and I got very little positive feedback, so that even just the little I got was enough to keep me hopeful that someone would show up and be engaged in the project. So the other challenge was I had to become at least a little proficient myself. The editing I had done up to that point was, just find a citation needed statement and search, and what librarian doesn't like searching for something that you can then create the reference and put it into a paper. So I decided, rather than starting from the citation needed statements, I would begin with something that I knew was very recent and was open access on a good, timely topic. And that was a special issue on ocean warming published in Oceanography, a peer-reviewed open access journal published by the Oceanography Society. And then I would, from there, look at existing articles in Wikipedia that needed more current information about ocean warming, and I would be able to link to the Oceanography journal. It sounded like it should be straightforward, but it was not particularly quick or easy, but it gave me good experience for leading the workshop. And I felt inordinately pleased when I got a message from a Wikipedia editor thanking me for my contribution. And also tied in nicely with my involvement with Citizens Climate Lobby. So finally, before the event, I created the campaign for Citizen Science Day and the program for the Citizen Science Day 2019 on the Wikimedia Programs and Events dashboard site. So it's the dashboard that allows you to keep track of what is happening within your event, and not just where you are as you do it live, but people who sign up and log into your program remotely. Setting those two things up took very little time, and I was really pleased when you can see here that there are 3 programs as part of the Citizen Science Day campaign. So I was really glad that at least 2 other programs thought it would be worth doing. The event itself was a lot of fun. As I said, it was a small crowd. there were 9 people and me in the Science Library Computer Lab. That included 1 Overland Town resident and 1 retired faculty member, and then 5 more logged into the program remotely. I gave a very brief tutorial to those people who all arrived at the start of the session, and after that I just roamed the room and helped out as necessary, pausing to give instruction to the entire group whenever someone's experience or question was relevant for everyone. And this is the model that I pretty much follow with any instruction session. I try to talk at the beginning as little as possible so that students will encounter problems that are meaningful to them rather than watching me show them my predefined questions and problems. And then I talk about the kinds of issues that that student encountered and how other people can work around that if it happens to them. Wikimedia's dashboard will provide great summary on editing activity. This is the campaign with the 3 programs listed there. And we can see that the activity from the first listed program, the University of North Carolina Women in Science Editathon, they had 10 participants, and they did a really great job of adding over 4,000 words to how many articles. It doesn't say here, it doesn't show the articles. And our Oberlin editors did not contribute as many words, but we managed to look at an astonishing number of articles. We had over 442,000 views of articles, and I think that in itself is a good learning experience. And here we can see more close-up the details about the Oberlin program, and shows that there were 19 articles edited altogether with 26 edits by 15 editors, and again the number of the words added. So I was able to share this editing data with a faculty member, the 1 faculty member who encouraged students to participate, and 4 of those students earned extra credit in their neuroscience class. 1 student in particular felt really great that some of the research he had completed for his honors project was now reflected in Wikipedia articles. I did warn everyone that Wikipedia can change quickly and that checking back on their edits could be instructive. So you just scroll down a little bit on this page and you'll find the download stats where you can get a wide variety of different downloads in CSV format. The overview data and the editing data, upload data, which we didn't do anything about. You can actually go to each editor's page because you create a page for yourself when you create a login, and it gives you more details about what they've been editing. So becoming an editor in Wikipedia is not for people who are concerned that other people are looking at what they've done. It's all very public. And the faculty member that was giving the extra credit was very pleased with what his students were doing. So here's an example of the spreadsheet that I got for the neuroscience students. And it shows everyone's username. The students shared with me their username so that I could pass along their actual names to the faculty member, and the article titles that they were editing. That was rewarding, that the students became very excited about the fact that they were making actual contributions to Wikipedia. And I helped the retired faculty member fix something that had been really frustrating for her, and she could not figure out how she was going to get this citation corrected. And it was kind of complicated, but we worked it out, and that was another thing to feel good about. So I think that although Wikimedia says that their program and events dashboard is still in beta, that I thought it was a really good tool for collaboration, especially since there were 5 other people who did some editing and used the hashtag of CITES 2019, which we had set up on the Citizen Science Day program. And you can go directly to Outreach Dashboard at the Wikimedia site and log in right there, sign up, and create your program. The training, the documentation they provide is really all you need to get going and be proficient enough to lead a group of students. That's certainly true. I do think that the summary statistics that are shown here, this was a little earlier in the week, are pretty awesome. How many programs there have been on the Wikimedia dashboard page. 33,630 editors, millions of words added, billions of article views, and again, millions of articles edited, and even thousands of articles created. So creating a whole article, to me, seems a little daunting. I haven't tried that. So I suspect that some of you are doing this, and you could give a workshop on it yourself. It's exciting to think about the tens of thousands of people who have contributed to Wikipedia, and also to think that you might be in the best position to find that one perfect citation that will validate or refute one questionable statement, because of course everyone is an expert in something. So if you haven't already been convinced that you should try a little bit of Wikipedia editing and work it into your program offerings, if you've never done it before, you could get started right now, because the spring campaign for One Live, One Breath is going on. It runs from May 15 to June 5, and you could just Google how to get started on One Live, One Breath, and you'd find lots of information that could get you going there. Maybe we can have a good number of programs observing Citizen Science Day together in 2020. I am going to do this again. Hopefully, I'll have more people joining me from maybe across Ohio or in the Science and Technology section of ACRL. And here are some of the URLs that I mentioned if you didn't have a chance or wanted to remind yourself of what they were. And that's all from me. Thanks so much for being here and listening.
Thank you, Allison. That was fascinating. I've been casting about trying to find some things to do that would involve our community, and I hadn't really thought about Wikipedia and citizen science. Sounds like a great idea, though. I plan to look into that. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Well, I guess we'll call it a day then. And thank you all for coming and taking some time out of your Friday afternoon.
Thank you for the invitation.
And have a great Memorial Day weekend, whatever you might happen to be doing. And I'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
I was happy to do it.